Okay, so I've recently begun to notice that there's actually a lot of parallels between Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen and Kakashi from Naruto. You know, both are senseis to the protagonist, both have white hair, are insanely powerful, and keep a pretty chill attitude most of the time. And that really got me thinking, what would happen if these two were to face off against one another? Now, I think we've got the answer, but first, be sure to drop a sub if you guys like more content like this, and join my public Discord server, and let's jump straight into it. Now, starting off with speed, Gojo's speed feats are really weird, and I've seen a lot of people actually state that he's faster than Light, although I don't have the calculations of his upper limits of his speed that place him at Light speed. I mean, I've yet to see something apart from his abilities regarding Infinity that would explicitly place him at Light speed, so I'll tell you what we know. Using earlier characters, we can actually use some pixel scaling with regards to Maki that reacted and caught a bullet after its starting point was point blank, and this wasn't really an ordinary bullet as it was one that was manifested using cursed energy.
There are pre-existing pixel scaling calculations that kind of go to show that the bullet aimed at Maki was fired from a type of revolver very similar to some real-life counterparts such as the Smith & Wesson Model 29, which should shoot a low ball of at least 360 meters per second, and having the bullet be approximately 4.7 centimeters from her face with the given range of motion that she shows means that she should have been able to react and move at speeds of 5,686 miles per hour, which is obviously hypersonic reaction speeds. That stacked with the fact that she had to use Newton's third law of motion to actually exert the same amount of force in order to stop that bullet, right?
She's also a 4th grade sorcerer, although this isn't really representative of her ability. At the end of season 1, I believe, I think she was recommended for either grade 1 or semi-grade 1. We know she's definitely not special grade material, as she and Megami struggle with Hanami the special grade curse. Since the levels are pretty linear for the most part, one Sukuna finger Yuji was able to defeat a special grade curse, which should definitely be above Maki, and Gojo states that if Sukuna regains his full power, he'd still be able to beat him, implying that he'd still be faster and stronger than a Sukuna who is 20 times faster than the Sukuna who easily killed the special grade curse in the beginning. If we assume that the first special grade curse's speed is the same as Maki's, which is an extreme low ball for the curse, and we assume that Gojo is the same speed as Sukuna with 20 fingers, which is most likely a low ball for Gojo, he'd be at bare minimum 411,967 miles per hour as far as reaction speed goes. This isn't really running speed. Obviously there's combat speed, reaction speed, and there is movement speed. I'm not really talking about movement speed here, or more so reaction speed, which is going to be a bigger factor in this fight, right? He also managed to easily dodge a sonic and explosive attack from Jogo. Just for reference, sonic booms move about 750 miles per hour. Also at this point, Jogo, who Gojo was fighting against, was stated to be relative to around 8 or 9 Sukuna fingers as well, and obviously he was easily manhandling him. It seems like Gojo also has teleportation, as he was able to leave mid-fight with Jogo, pick up Yuji from watching his movies, and bring him back so he can observe the fight, all before Jogo really even noticed that he moved. And before I move on to Kakashi, there's one feat that I would like to talk about that I'm pretty sure people are going to mention in the comments that is commonly misrepresented. It's when he put up a domain expansion for 0.2 seconds and killed 1,000 transfigured humans, but this was actually done after the domain expansion was released, so the actual killing of 1,000 transfigured humans took not 299 seconds, which was stated like a couple panels later, which obviously isn't nearly as fast, but I don't think this feat should work against him, as he also was obviously trying to be very cautious and not hit any normal humans who were in the direct vicinity in the area of all these transfigured humans. So it would make sense for him to slow himself down a little bit so he can actually pick off the correct ones. Now moving on to Kakashi, just like how we use Maki pixel scaling to find out how fast Gojo was, there are multiple ways to find out, relatively speaking, how fast Kakashi is. Now first of all, we're going to be talking about War Art Kakashi without DMS, because that would be pretty OP right off the bat. So I just thought I would clear things up so people kind of understand which Kakashi we're referring to. So first of all, we know that pre-Shippuden, Kakashi managed to split a lightning in half, but it was also mentioned by Guy in the manga, and is where he came up with the name Lightning Blade, so going into Shippuden he should be at least around this speed. Also, lightning isn't light speed. The light from the lightning obviously goes at the speed of light, but the actual trajectory of the lightning and the speed of the lightning itself goes around 270,000 miles per hour. So you could argue that he was around this speed and might get a little bit faster. I've also heard other arguments that state that he's not lightning speed because he didn't actually have to move as fast as the lightning itself, just react to it. Regardless, his reaction speed itself should be lightning speed, and he was able to split lightning in half and does get faster over time, so I'll give him the lightning speed going into Shippuden at least. And remember when Naruto dodged the Raikage's attack? Well, we also know by databook statements that the double area is close to the speed of light, so we know that he should be capable of light speed attacks. Then you have Naruto in his KCM form completely blitz him at point blank. I've seen calculations, I haven't made them myself, but they go on to state that he moved about 3.776 meters in the time frame of 1.4 times 10 to the negative 10th of a second, and that means that he was roughly moving around 88.7 times the speed of light, which is already, if you already know the calculation for the speed of light, it's already 2.99 times 10 to the 8th meters per second, which is way faster than anything that we've seen Gojo do. Obviously, this is KCM 1 Naruto, but there are arguments to be made that KCM 1 Naruto somewhat struggled against the version 2 cloaked Jinchuriki, and when Kakashi and 6'8 Guy joined the fight, they performed just as good. Kakashi himself doesn't land really too many blows, but he's able to swap hands, and in the anime, and it hits the Jinchuriki cloaked hands with lightning cable, so his combat speed should be roughly at least coming close to relative to that of KCM 1, as there wasn't an explicit difference in their speed and power in those fights, and I believe that there are some other instances later on as to why War Kakashi is brought somewhat relative to this weaker variation of Naruto, but I just thought I'll give a couple of examples so we're on the same page. You could also try scaling Kakashi to Obito, but I'm going to try to avoid doing that a little bit just because in their fight, it's common knowledge that Obito was holding back, but it is something to definitely note. Obviously, Kakashi wasn't blatantly blitzed by Obito, and now there's a lot of different places that you could try to measure Kakashi's speed, and there's contradictory statements, to where Kakashi states that, and pre-Sage mode, Rasen Shuriken Naruto surpassed him, but this was before the war arc, and it was most likely referring to strength and attack potency. I thought I would mention it before somebody else does, because although Kakashi performs worse than Naruto in his Sage mode did against the passive pain, obviously Naruto had a lot of intel, and obviously we would have to assume that Kakashi gets a lot stronger after this point because KCM is also above Sage mode, so in order for Kakashi to be somewhat relative to KCM 1 in terms of speed, which was shown later on, he would have needed to become a little bit more powerful over time, right? I think the safest estimate would be that he's definitely not massively faster than light until he gets DMS, but he's definitely comfortably faster than lightning. Probably sitting around just under light speed to around light speed using some highball calculations with the KCM 1 scaling, but let me know what you guys think below and where you put War Art Kakashi in terms of speed. Some of this information can be found in around Naruto chapter 566 through 568 for those who are wondering. Now moving on to his strength, right? The Versus Battle Wiki puts Gojo's attack potency at around large town level to large mountain level plus, which is backed up by the fact that multiple times we've seen him use his most destructive abilities such as Red. He's able to send curses flying through trees, he can create ravines, sends Toji flying through buildings. Using Blue, he can cause a building to implode, and using Purple, he obliterates a large path through a whole forest. Most of these abilities were also used without too much effort as well. He wasn't going completely all out. And from what we've seen, he's also been able to defeat special grade curses. He one-shot Hanami, who was easily able to face off against Megumi and Maki, and was stated to be the strongest sorcerer in the manga. And Kakashi is stated again by the wiki to be around mountain level plus to city level, although most of his attacks have a very high potency, but are not directly highly destructive, right? Because there's not too many instances in the manga where we see Kakashi absolutely decimate a landscape, so he does have a high attack potency, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he has a ton of super highly destructive feats to the landscape, right? But Kakashi has been shown to, cut boulders in half with lightning blade kunais and pierce version 2 Jinchurikis and fight against them who can easily level a mountain. So we have to do a lot of power scaling in order to determine exactly how strong he is. For example, if A can level a mountain and B is stronger than A, then B should be able to level a mountain as well, kind of going through that transitive logic. Now moving on to their abilities, right? I just recently put out a video on the overwhelming power of Gojo, so I'm not going to go super in depth into their abilities, but I will discuss them a little bit for those who haven't seen either franchise or one of them. As far as array of abilities, Kakashi has the edge on this one. Having the Sharingan, he spent many years copying jutsu until he gained the title of the Copy Ninja Kakashi. Although Although he can use many copy jutsu, he has a specific affinity for lightning-related techniques, such as lightning cable, lightning blade, all that stuff, as well as having dog summons, being able to use longer-range kamui to warp things to the kamui dimension, and he's also used it several times in the war arc, although it isn't really reliable to spam it, as was stated by himself. Gojo's destructive abilities are primarily blue, to increase cursed energy output and attract and pull things. I think it can also be used to amp his speed. He can use red, which essentially does the opposite, repelling with an explosive force, which erases virtually anything in his path. These abilities are very similar to the Diva Path from Naruto, if you remember. He can also use Black Flash, has control over space with Limitless, and Infinity, which is basically the neutral form of the technique Limitless, where any attack directed to him will never land, but simply hit the infinity between him and the other object or person, giving the illusion that the blow is actually slowing down, but never quite reaching him. He also has a domain expansion, which creates a metaphysical space, causing the other person to get caught, to feel endless stimuli, feeling anything and everything, and is mostly known for its restraining properties. And finally, he's got the Six Eyes, which plays a role in some of his limiting techniques and increases his perception, similar to Kakashi's Sharingan. Now, as far as the winner goes, honestly, I think Kakashi's got the edge here in terms of speed and strength, as there's more transitive scaling to imply that Kakashi's much faster. Even if we highball Gojo's speed and we lowball Kakashi's speed, it still seems like Kakashi would come out on top in terms of speed. Very similarly with strength, but they are both pretty arguable. The biggest factors in this fight are actually going to be neither one of those factors, but Gojo's Infinity, Domain Expansion, and Kakashi's Kamui, right? Now, many people believe that the Kamui is the perfect counter to Infinity, but the main problem that I personally have with this is that Kamui can't be shot out at an infinite distance or range, because Gojo's ability works on the premise that there's an infinite distance or space between him and the opponent, so they'll never be able to reach him, right? The best analogy I can come up with is if you ask Kakashi to look up at a star and Kamui a carbon atom right next to it, right? It's just too far away, and the Kamui hasn't been shown to have an infinite range. So even if Kakashi is way faster, he won't be able to hurt him if his attacks don't land. Another feat I can use to justify this is that Jogo has an ability to look at someone and instantaneously combust their head, which should neg durability, which is part of the reason why he was so confident when fighting against Gojo. But even though his attack can be instantly spawned over his opponent, it still doesn't hurt Gojo. And this premise is very similar to the Kamui, right? He's got to look at him, he's going to try to Kamui him, but it's not going to work. It's going to Kamui the space around him. But if the Kamui did hypothetically work, there is the argument that he could blitz and Kamui snipe his head off, which I've heard people say, but more than likely though, he wouldn't be able to reach him, and Gojo would win as a result of the combination of his techniques, such as purple and possibly his domain expansion, stacked with regen and the fact that he can regenerate if he were to drop his infinity, which most likely he wouldn't, as he doesn't do that anymore. The best bets for Kakashi that I've not seen anyone mention are actually Genjutsu, which he should be able to produce with a Sharingan, albeit more of a simple one, and sealing, as Gojo can be sealed away. And those are the only two overlapping ways within their verses that I see Kakashi being able to pull a dub here. And also, the reason why I mentioned that Kakashi should be able to pull up quite a nice Genjutsu, although we haven't really seen him do it, is obviously with the Sharingan. We know that Obito, with the other half of Kakashi's Sharingan, was able to put Yagura, a perfect Jinchuriki, under a Genjutsu that lasted years. So I don't see why Kakashi shouldn't be able to produce a very simpler version of this. Although it's not really in character, we don't really see him use it anyways. It's just something to note that's there as a possible last-ditch effort means of winning. With no preparation, I don't think Kakashi would be able to seal Gojo away, and I don't think that Gojo would have a counter to Genjutsu, although that's not, like I said, that's not Kakashi's fighting style. He'd probably start off with a physical approach, then Ninjutsu, then possibly Kamui, which again probably wouldn't work, then the other methods like I stated. As a result, I conclude that Gojo would probably take this 8 out of 10 times, unless some obscure circumstances like I stated were to take place. But it's super hard to get around his abilities without domain amplifications and technique neutralizing weapons that don't exist in the Naruto-verse. If Kamui works more, it's more like a 50-50, as it can still be avoided or dodged. It's not an instant KO, and it's never been an instant KO even in the Naruto-verse. It's usually pretty slow, but I guess you could argue that it has the potential to be quick, as Kakashi was able to use it on Madara's Truth-Seeking Orb, as Guy was about to attack it, but again, this was a coordinated attack, so I don't know if you could really argue that he'd be able to speed blitz Kamui. And again, I did not include DMS Kakashi because his scaling is absolutely ridiculous and above anything I've seen in the Jujutsu Kaisen franchise, and I'm pretty sure majority of people would agree that he would just stomp. So ultimately, because these are two completely different franchises, their scaling are very strenuous to make comparable, and there are a lot of external factors, applications, and such. But leave your comments down below. If you guys like more videos like this, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, drop a sub, as these videos actually take forever to make. Also, if you guys want to go above and beyond and get to know me personally, check out my public Discord server and get the anime hoodie down below.
And I'll catch you next one.